Did you also enjoy the ICF SUP World Championships? I sure did, and boy are we lucky we got to enjoy this. Because remember, the ICF was gonna hide this entire thing behind a paywall of an insignificant, unknown sports league streaming service. That sport league streaming service apparently had funding problems and went bankrupt, and lucky us, we get to see the super cool ICF SUP Stand-Up World Championships, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in the coming video. First day was sprints with lane racing, and we can discuss here about how cool lane racing is or how uncool it is. That's not the point here. The point is here that you can bust out heat after heat after heat. And how cool were those graphics, guys? I mean, the finish line with the finish number and the country there, and there's no disputes after running up the beach or anything. It's a sprint. 200 meters in a straight line, that was a sprint. I was watching it, and yes, at times it actually got a little boring, but that's a sprint. The results, a little bit of a surprise there by open man, because Andre Crador was the fastest times in every heat, and then in the final he had to give it up for Noik Gariou with a time of 50 seconds, 0.75, and then Connor Baxter less than a second right behind, and then Crador just over a second. So you guys saw the finish line there. I mean, it was just such a big, such a small margin. And then there's one thing that nobody ever really noticed, but you guys see on the finish line how Crater and Baxter are coming in right at the same time, but Connor is shifting his weight backwards, pushing his board forward, and therefore his nose is just by a tad crossing that line first. On the women's side, what a comeback for Seychelles. I mean, we know Seychelles for so many years. She started to retire a little bit when she had a kid, but we know competitive athletes, when they love to compete, they love to compete. So Seychelles came back, and she came back with a bang, winning the women sprint race with a second 0.72 before Juliette Duham, which had also a good season this year and starting to really make a mark on the international scene. And then with 2.35 seconds behind was Taryn King, also a name that we've seen on so many championships with the ISA just already years and years ago, and she was super stoked because she beat Melanie Lafenêtre and Esperanza, who are both very fierce competitors, particularly Melanie and Espe coming off a great medals from ISA and ESF championships. So wow, so that was a cool final there to watch, but then came the big surprise. The ICF did something that nobody saw coming. I actually have to say I felt extremely validated by them putting on an exhibit foil SUP sprint race with 3 guys from Starboard. I'm having the feeling that Starboard was a little bit behind that as well, of course. And they showcased what's possible with SUP foil flat water starts, doing 200 meter race there. I wish they would have put a timer on to see how much faster that is. And this is something, guys, that I've been saying over and over. SUP foiling and SUP racing is going to start to merge. It is inedible. SUP foiling is SUP, and the racing can only get faster and more exciting with more talent. And here we had it. The ICF, the Canoe Federation, not necessarily a organization that is known for progression, they put that on and put it right after the sprint races final, when the most people are watching. And I'm telling you one, guys, comes 2024, I am guaranteed to see that we have a push, and that other SUP race organizers will start to incorporate that into their SUP races. And after an exciting sprint race came the long distance races, and yeah, I have to admit it, I find long distance racing a little bit of a yawner. It's just, it's too long, but the results were pretty amazing. And this is actually the point where we're going to have to talk a little bit about the master classes, where we have to talk about Peter Weidert and Daniel Pares. You wouldn't even think this is an over 50 class. These guys are absolute trained athletes and absolute hammers, and I want to say it's so cool that these guys are getting actually a stage where they can compete internationally against one another. This is really cool, and I enjoyed watching that. Peter Weider got his second gold medal. I mean, how cool is that? Daniel Pares was second there in the long distance. In the open class, we had there Noik Garyu winning this thing in front of the two Japanese hammers, Rai Taguchi and Shrimpy Shuri Oroki. So that was cool to see. Of course, we had the big names like Michael Booth and Tito Puyo in there, and Tito missing the podium, and Michael Booth with a very disappointing 10th place there, I'm sure, and we all know Boothie, that is not the result that he was hoping to get. On the women's side, Esperanza solidifying her season one more time. Amazing. The big surprise there actually was that Duna Gordillo, or Gordillo, like Russell likes to say, Duna Gordillo actually coming in third behind Kimberly Barnes. So that was definitely a big surprise there. We did not see that. It would be nice to see Kimberly Barnes from the US to be competing in Europe a little bit more often. As we can see, there's a lot of talent out there that we normally don't get to see competing, and that is the great thing about those cool international championships, that we just don't see these people all the time, like Rika Okwaki on 4th place and Seychelles making 5th before Anna Chirky, who has been very strong in long distances. So Anna there on the 6th, also a little bit of a surprise, and then Iona Rivet on 7th place. So there was definitely a little bit of a shake-up, and then yes, Fiona Wild there, just like Boothie, and we're sure Fiona was hoping for a better result herself, but that's what happens at these big events. You have all names that are coming and you just don't know. So long distance was cool. I could skip over at least 45 minutes and watch the beginning and the end. Wow. And then we had the tag races. It was then with the men's 50 plus. Peter Weidert was ready for a third gold, but Daniel Pares was just faster, stealing that third gold. So these two guys definitely very exciting to watch. But then came the open finals, and with the ladies it was very suspenseful, with Esperanza Barreras there just getting the lead, just winning at the end. We were thinking that maybe Juliette Duhaime was going to clinch that gold, or Melanie Lafenêtre, but then it was definitely Esperanza winning then in front of Melanie Lafenêtre, Juliette Duhaime and Anna Chirky on the 4th place. But then came the men's sprint race, and I was really in suspense, thinking like, is Connor gonna be able to do this? Because Noik was really strong and Andre Krator was so hungry for his first podium. And what happens right out of the gates, these two guys go down. First Noik and then Andre, basically handing off their podium chances to the remaining field. So these guys were out. That was very unfortunate for them, as Connor was really hammering to that first buoy. Connor's experience just shows he knows the first to the buoy. Connor really had a comfortable lead at the first buoy. He was already there, and then somebody else went down, but he never really found out who that was. The commentators never said. And then all the way to the beach turn, Connor comfortably. And then what happened there? Then comes Shuri Araki on his re-entry, completely unsolicited, loses his paddle and has to swim back, and then gets hit in the head by a starboard. And I mean, that was hard, because Shuri Araki is also a title contender for sure. He is very strong all the time. So Mr. Shrimpy, his podium hopes were also gone. And then it was still Connor really comfortably leading, followed by a pack of 3 consisting of Itzel Delgado, Antonio Murillo and Christian Andersen were on the chase, but Connor was definitely faster. And then something happened, and it happened so quick there in front of the finish line that it was Itzel Delgado and Antonio Murillo that are pulled away. Christian Andersen somehow getting stuck behind, and then sneaking in was Rai Taguchi. We didn't even see that for real there, and Rai Taguchi actually clinching 4th place ahead of Christian Andersen, who just seconds before had podium hopes. And then he was Itzel Delgado with a silver medal and Antonio Murillo with a 3rd. Wow, you guys, what a race was this. Connor pulling through all the way off the start and somehow also getting it handed by Norik Garju and Andre Kreitor, who bowed out of the race, so to speak, and Connor just showing his experience and moving through. He had definitely some unexpected names on the podium there before that. I really enjoyed watching it. Again, super happy that we could watch it on YouTube and not hidden somewhere. I thought the production, as always, flawless. I mean, great production with the timing and the race stats coming through. Sometimes I felt the race stats were lagging a little bit behind what actually was happening. I think they were moving a little fast with the heats. Even the commentators had a hard time catching up as the races was moving on so fast, and the guys couldn't even really recap what happened, and it was already the next one. And by the way, good job on the commentary. I actually had to laugh sometimes because Russell is just absolute hilarious. Mathieu, as always, very professional, very knowledgeable, and those two guys, sometimes I was just funny with Russell and his pronunciations of the names, the mispronunciations of the names. It is just classic. So I really had a good time watching this. It was never boring. Sometimes you couldn't really tell who wanted to be the main speaker, who was the main speaker. They were both kind of like jockeying. It was like never boring. So these two guys were funny and awesome. And on the technical race, they had 3 guys in the booth, so it got even busier with commentating. So good job, you guys. I had a great time watching everything. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.